So 2020 has been a year of significant change. The world has had to adapt to the global pandemic that's affected all of our lives, and we've been influenced by new ways of working and interacting at the same time. Digital advertising is thriving once again. The second half of the year has seen a real bounce back in terms of budgets. And marketers have started to settle into what is a new norm.
So we've seen a massive change in digital behaviour this year. Now, most of that has been, we did actually predict in 2019, but actually 2020 has just allowed that behaviour to accelerate even faster than we had predicted, particularly in things like e-commerce, streaming, podcasts. That's all down to the fact that we now have more time at home, and we do have this need for escapism. Everything we're doing is much more digital, not just for the young, but for the older generations as well. The needs for media haven't changed, but actually we're just finding the digital alternative to that. We're seeing things like using the internet to watch TV. That's really gone up year on year, and specifically for over 55s.
Personally, I love how technology has broadened my horizons. So the devices and platforms that I find myself using today are largely, obviously, the computer for communication, whether it's by in person, using, for instance, Zoom, or email. Also, I find the computer absolutely wonderful these days for things like audiobooks. One further addition that I would add is the smart television, which is a whole new world for me. I use it extensively, and again, what I use it for is it allows me to be selective about what I watch. Consumers
are spending more time at home engaging with online content than ever before, and we've seen that something like 8 hours a day is viewing online video, up from about 7 hours in 2019. How consumers are engaging with that content is also changing. So in 2020, we have seen that be a real defining year for connected TV. Viewership for CTV is up something like 12% year on year globally. So as an industry, it's really important that we capture the upside that's associated with this trend. For some time now, consumers have been expecting more from the brands that they want to interact with on a daily basis. This is a fact that was supported by Kantar's COVID-19 barometer study released earlier in April. In that study, there was something like 25,000 consumers surveyed across 30 markets globally. And of that study, there were 92% of consumers that actually felt it was important that brands continue to share the message and their brand identity with the people that they were looking to work with. 77% of consumers wanted to hear how the brand could be helpful to them in their everyday life. And 70% of those wanted the brand to offer a reassuring tone to them. What's clear is that brands with strong ethics and values are gaining headway. And it's becoming a really critical part of the decision-making process for consumers in terms of the brands that they want to align with on a daily basis.
So really aligning with customer expectation in today's world is more important than it ever has been before. Over the past couple of years, we've seen consumers actually actively saying that they would switch off buying a brand if it doesn't have ethical practices. And this is something we've been tracking for a couple of years. But I think in the pandemic, that's become even more important. But of course, whatever you do has to fit with your brand identity, because if it doesn't, consumers will react to that really quickly and not believe you.
My top considerations for interacting with brands during this global pandemic are generally to be a lot more aware of what I'm buying. So I look for things that are ethically made, locally sourced, preferably organic. Even with the children's toys, I don't buy them anything that's plastic at all anymore. In fact, I don't actually buy them that much anymore.
I would say I do think that if a brand is more socially aware, I'd be more likely to buy products from them. For instance, if they have a stance on Black Lives Matter and they seem to take an interest in their consumers' lives, then that would be a major factor for me wanting to buy their product.
I don't want to deal with a company that has a reputation for mistreating people, mistreating the environment. I admit that there are times when I will step outside of that consideration, but nevertheless, it's become an increasingly important driver for me personally.
So consumer expectations around seeing corporate empathy will continue to grow. I think that those that are able to do so will see benefits in terms of customer retention. In addition to this time next year, our industry will be focused or certainly faced with another challenge in terms of the demise of the third-party cookies. So for me, it's therefore never more important to organize your data and understand your customers, understand where you can find those audiences, and how you can engage with those audience with different types of content that they're viewing and in different environments. E-commerce has seen a huge uptick throughout the pandemic. Shopify's results that they released for the third quarter noted revenue upside of something like 95 or 96% year on year. So COVID-19 has really triggered an accelerated shift into digital commerce. I think this is mainly because of the products that are available online, the delivery and ease of getting those products, health and safety in stores, and frankly, stores just not being open for a large period of the year.
I would prefer to buy a product if it used an app such as Klarna, because then it's easier, obviously, to split up the payments. And as a student, it is obviously just easier for me to pay things in small chunks as opposed to as one big payment.
Websites using technology must be easy for me. Too many websites, I find, assume that my knowledge is greater than it actually is.
Brand experience has become more important than ever because actually the sort of old levers you would pull are becoming more ineffective than ever. You know, you used to be able to win just on product or, you know, the place you were selling, having an amazing store or amazing digital online or the price. But I think the reality is that actually more and more you can't compete just on one of those levers, and it's about actually the holistic customer experience. You know, customers that had to suddenly shop for their groceries online for the first time had painful experiences getting delivery, or customers buying products and needing support would find that they couldn't talk to the contact center anymore, or when people finally were able to go back into physical branches or shops, the experiences have become really clinical and painful.
As new people are coming online, it's going to be more confusing them to navigate your world. So if you don't have the same kind of brand identity and the same kind of messages, both on your laptop to your mobile to actually eventually in store and your e-commerce experience as well, you're going to confuse people. And as those people aren't necessarily digital natives, they need that trust that everything you're doing is seamless and in one. And you really want to make sure that whatever brand identity you have really shines through no matter what platform.
Since the pandemic's happened, I feel like the way that I shop it is very different. I find myself finding things that I need just through it being drip fed through all different types of social media, and eventually I do buy it.
What we're already seeing is a huge uptick in brands starting or accelerating contactless augmented reality experiences to engage customers. And by definition, that is a technology which brings together the digital and the physical. Brands need to really have a clear view of how are you going to leverage this technology to provide those omnichannel experiences.
So my advice for marketers going into next year is firstly to lean into TV and video. It's where all of the eyeballs are right now. Embrace change and expect more of it. Brands need to be agile when it comes to responding to consumer behavior, and learn and be aware of what other brands are doing in the space in order to meet that consumer need. Finally, I would say take the time to think about what you want your brand to mean to consumers. In a world where consumers have got so much choice, one of the key influencer points that have emerged is tied to brand values. Consumers are better educated than ever before. Just think about your brand and the social impact that it's making on society and the benefits that can have in terms of long-term customer retention.